Hello, everyone, and welcome to Travel, Explore, Celebrate Life. This is your host, Sunila, and as usual, I'm joined by Neil. And we have one more really exciting destination that we want to talk about today. I've been traveling. In fact, for the last 2 weeks, I was in the US and I really had a great time because I was driving around. So I had a car as well. And one of the things that I really liked about it, I was on the West Coast, is the different kind of foods that you can taste. And every day we were having you know, a different cuisine every day. And one of my favorites there was the Vietnamese pho. Time and again, I found myself going there. So it's really like a comfort food, a soup. And we're going to talk more about it as we go ahead in the episode. But let's come to our destination for today, and that is Vietnam. An amazing place where there's also like a love market that goes on. They have an amazing coffee, which is famous. The most Instagrammable picture, I would say, that is been doing the rounds has been the hands of God that we've all been seeing. Neil has been to Vietnam and we're going to hear all about it from him. So welcome, Neil, and let's start our episode for the day.
Awesome. Thanks, Sunila. Welcome back. Welcome back to India. Both of us have been traveling, but you've been traveling much more. San Francisco, New York to Singapore, the longest flight in the world. When we were looking
That's
on
true.
flight radar and tracking your flight actually flew over India to Singapore and then you came back into Mumbai. So of course we'll talk about the flight and all later, but let's get started. Let's get started with Vietnam. Where should we start?
Neil,
Yeah.
this is one country that I have been dying to visit for the longest time ever. And somehow things have put me, I've always put it at the back. Like there were many other things to do. And one of the reasons, of course, was the flight, because, unless and until you have a direct flight, you can't just decide and take off. You have to plan a lot. But now the good news is that we do have a direct flight. You've been to Vietnam, and I remember you coming back and telling me all about it. But what is in your memory that is even fresh today? What is it about Vietnam that you really liked? And if we think of our viewers, what would you say are the reasons that you would go to Vietnam?
It's interesting because now we have a direct flight, right? We have direct flights to
Yes.
Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh. But when I flew the last time, I had actually taken Malaysian Airlines, flew via Kuala Lumpur, and did the longer flight. What do I remember about Vietnam? Well, a country that is slow paced, like how the Mekong River flows through Ho
Mm.
Chi Minh or near Ho Chi Minh, a country that has incredible food, a country that is still very untouched. And you see a lot of natural beauty, and I'm sure we'll discuss it as we go about it. A country that has a war-torn past also, because
Yeah.
we all know the Vietnam War, which I
Mm.
think ended in 1975. And you get to see a lot of that. But more importantly, a country that is pretty big, I would say, because
Mm.
it is, if you look at the map, it is like this
Yeah.
thin country. And on the left, you'll have Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, and then there's this Vietnam, super thin country. And I often get asked by people that, Neil, there's Hanoi, there's Ho Chi Minh. Can we drive between the two? But if you look at the map, you really can't drive. I mean, it's possible,
It
but
is, but I checked
yeah.
it, Neil. It's 32 hours drive on Google Maps as it shows of now 32 hours. So I was just thinking actually, and if you zoom out of the map and you compare and you put India next to it, it's probably the distance from, say, a Kanyakumari to a West Bengal or beyond, So
Yeah,
it
something
is
like
a
that.
big, long journey. But let's come to that. Now we have the direct flight, so obviously your time taken to travel there is much lesser. So you can have more time in the country. You can enjoy the country much more. You can actually do it once. You can do it twice. Maybe you can go back there 2-3 times because, like you mentioned, it's a long country. So if you don't have the
Yeah.
time to do everything together, maybe you can choose one city and explore things around it. But which brings me to the two main cities, Ho Chi Minh and Hanoi. Now, where should we start? What would you do first? What would you do second? Can we do both of it together? Or if you had to choose between the two, what is your take? What do you think, Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh?
See, I'll first stop you and be like, you mentioned that let's talk about the two main cities, that is Ho
Mhm.
Chi Minh and Hanoi. Now, if you have to think about it, before the pandemic, there was a direct flight into Vietnam, but it was not to Ho Chi Minh or not to Hanoi. it was to Danang International
Yeah.
Airport. Now,
Mm.
Danang is where the super popular bridge,
Yes.
the bridge is, which is called the
Yeah.
Golden Hands Bridge, right? And we'll
Yeah.
come to that. But again, Ho Chi Minh and Hanoi offer good like gateways into Vietnam, but I would say two of the many important cities
Yeah.
that you would
Yeah.
probably come across. There is Hoi An, there is Danang, there is Hue, there is Sapa, where you have the Love Market or the Love
Yeah.
Street, as it's
Yeah.
called. Then there's the Mekong Delta that you do. There's Halong Bay and all that. But to understand it better, let's start with Ho Chi Minh, I would say, because Ho Chi Minh is a rather important city in Vietnam, because Ho Chi Minh is where the war also sort of ended.
Mm.
And like we discussed, Vietnam, 1975, Vietnam War, it has got like this war-torn history. So Ho Chi Minh is a place where you really understand the history of Vietnam. And one of the biggest or the best places to really understand this history is something known as the Reunification Palace. Now,
Mm.
when the Vietnam War ended, it was basically tanks that stormed through I think, the north gate of the Reunification
Mm.
Palace and stormed the palace, and that's when the war ended. So when you go to Reunification Palace, many people will also say that it is the Independence Palace, because
Mm.
this is where Vietnam got independent. The war ended, and 60% of the population that you find in Vietnam was actually born after the war. So a good place to start is Ho Chi Minh. At the Reunification Palace, there is also the Ho Chi Minh City Museum that you can see, where you get
Mm.
to see a lot of photos, artifacts about all of these things. Then there is another museum which, like, people see is more, which gets you much closer to what life was during the Vietnam
The
War, which is
war.
the War
Yeah.
Remnants Museum. But what people really like to go see are the Kochi tunnels.
Yeah.
Now, the Kochi tunnels were built in the 1930s, because that time there was a war happening between the French and the US, if I'm not wrong. And these were long tunnels that were used back then. But these tunnels, which were very thin, and people used to hide in them, go through them, were also used during the Vietnam War by the congressmen to hide, because those gave a good place which couldn't be found, and only a few people knew the maps of it and all that. Of course, these Kochi tunnels have now been widened slightly. You can go in
Mm.
some of them, they are lit and all of that. So Ho Chi Minh offers you a good point of, a good starting point to understand what Vietnam really is. And for history buffs, I would definitely say Ho Chi Minh is a good place. Another thing is that Ho Chi Minh is also known for its nightlife. And in its main quarter, you will, Vietnam is often known as the backpacker country. And when I went,
Mm.
I also did backpacking. I was roughing it out all the time. So it is known for its nightlife, and you'll see many younger people from all around the world just going on pub crawls, bar
Yeah.
crawls, and just partying all through the night. And there's no
Mm.
everything shuts at 2
Mm.
a.m. or anything like that. It just, the party goes
It's
on through
open.
the night. Yeah.
No,
So yeah,
that's
that's
really
yeah.
interesting, Neil, because I've been looking at the Kochi tunnels, and that, of course, has been one of my. It's on my bucket list to go and visit that. I mean, of the things to do in Vietnam, because it's quite interesting, and like you said, it's a great starting point. It gives you an idea of how people would have lived. How could they even run like hospitals? How would they store the food and the weapons in those days to take care of in the tunnels? How did they live? And now that it's widened a little bit, maybe they've made it a little easier for the tourists to come in and see those tunnels as well. You did mention that it is a backpacker country, and yes, it is easy, but at the same time, it's quite interesting that even when you want to do, say, for example, a luxury travel in Vietnam, it's really quite affordable. Like, you can take a private transfer anywhere you go. You don't have to be worried about anything. And there are some amazing hotels out there. Like, in fact, one of the properties in Danang is shaped, the Intercontinental was shaped like the hat, inverted hat that is used in the rice fields as you work. So even the architecture has been so stunning that I've actually had people, like some of our guests, send me a photo and said, where is this hotel? I want to go and live here because it's so amazing. And these are people who would not hesitate to spend on their holidays and have every luxury at your doorstep. So Vietnam is quite a mix, and I think it offers everything for everybody. with the whole mix that you can do there. So whether you want to be a backpacker or you're a student who want to enjoy the pub crawls, or you really want to go all out and have the best of the best, I think the country has it all. Now that we've spoken of Ho Chi Minh, it brings me, Neil, to Hanoi, because, and Ho Chi Minh, I think, was also called as Saigon, right? From the times that we know in the war.
Yes,
And
and that's
for,
why its airport code is
yeah,
SGN.
it is still
So yeah,
Saigon. And for
yeah.
those who are really familiar with the war, Saigon was really important in those days. I think it sounds very poetic to me, Saigon. I love the name. I really like some of these Vietnamese names, Saigon, Mekong. They have a special air about them somehow. So let's come to Hanoi. Hanoi also, of course, is the gateway to the famous Halong Bay and the cruises that you can do there. So what else can we expect in Hanoi? Is Hanoi like the prettier city as compared to Ho Chi Minh? Can we say that? Or, what should one do there? How many days would you spend? What is the
So
way to do it?
so in Hanoi, you will find the Ho Chi Minh Mausoleum also, because Ho Chi Minh, who
Okay.
was
Yeah.
the most like popular political figure of Vietnam, his mausoleum is in Hanoi. So that's one place you can visit. There is something known as the one pillar pagoda that you can go and see. So you can see that. But I think what Hanoi really is that you can see a lot of the French influence. Now, to compare it to Paris, you go to Paris, you get these pretty cafes and you can sit on a terrace where
Yeah.
two seats are just on one side. There's a table and you're facing the road, right? And you're just sipping on your coffee or having your drink and just seeing like people go by. Now, Hanoi has an old quarter, and the old quarter is also the French quarter, where you'll see all of the French styled or French architectured buildings and all of that. So a similar thing of the terrace over here in this old quarter is that you'll be sitting on super small stools. You'll have a super small table, and you'll be having either the local Vietnamese beer, or you'll have your drinks, which are like all these super cheap cocktails. And speaking of cheap, I'll not say cheap, but Vietnam is indeed a country that I think it's probably the best countries to do a budget luxury vacation,
Yeah.
because
It's easy
it
on your
is cheap.
pocket. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
easy on your pocket, and you get service. Like, people are super nice, and that's one of the good things that you will really notice. Now, speaking of Hanoi, Hanoi is also known more often as the pho capital of Vietnam. And you mentioned pho. So for people who know pho, well, you know how great pho is, but it's more like a Vietnamese staple, right? It is made of four
Yeah.
ingredients. It is stock made from meat broth, or for vegetarians, it could be vegetarian broth. It's boiled meat, rice noodles, and herbs and onions. Now, most of these four places will serve beef, but I really love chicken pho, or this chicken soup, or chicken noodle soup as it is called. And you can request for chicken pho. You can also request for vegetarian pho. So many places have also started serving vegetarian pho. And there is a street in French Quarter known as Loduc, which is Loduc. And over there is one place called Pho Thin, which is one of the most popular places to go have pho. So pho, if you really want to try, they give you the noodles, they give you the soup and all of that, and they're giving you these herbs on the side. So you have to get the coriander, put it, you get the sprouts, you put it in, and you can make it really spicy also. So that's one of the things. So that's what I remember from Hanoi. And if you go north of Hanoi, there's Sapa. Now, Sapa is situated in the mountains. It is, I think, like, in my research, I was finding out about Sapa. It is 1650 meters high, and it's on a mountain ridge. And yes, one of the famous things you do over there is the Love Street. Now, what is Love Street? Love Street is where the local men and women sing songs of love to each other. But over the years, what has happened over the years, so many tourists have come in, so many visitors have come in, that the real soul of Love Street has now gone underground, which means that now this Love Street is okay. It's a touristy place, but if you really want to see these men and women singing songs to each other, you'll have to find a local who will really take you over there. And most of these Love Street or Love Market sort of, I'll call them performances for now, they happen at secret places now. So it's not only one place, but yes, Sapa was made famous.
And Sapa is famous for the rice terraces, right? Like whatever
Yes.
photos I've seen have always been of these amazing rice terraces because the photographs look so amazing.
So
And
back in the day, like 1930s, it was a
mhm.
French hill station.
Um,
And I think, I don't know whether you can do a day trip to Sapa, but many tourist companies in Hanoi will take you on a day trip and back.
Right.
So yeah.
And it's interesting to, think about the Love Street and the songs. And I think I kind of like it that they've gone underground because it keeps it pretty original. So even before, like, you have all the dating apps that you see now, this is so much better in-person dating by singing songs to each other and like, coming forward and professing your love. I think that's really interesting. And in a way, it's sad that over tourism sometimes, forces people to go underground and do such things. But I think it also helps to keep the tradition intact. So that is also quite nice. So we've spoken of Sapa and we are speaking of Hanoi, but I think, Neil, one of the other things to do from Hanoi, like we mentioned, is to go to Halong Bay. So let's
Yes.
talk a little bit about that. So would you say that you can do like a day cruise in Halong Bay, or should it always be an overnight cruise? And what do you expect on these cruises? Because
So
again, I
yeah.
think when you're really in Halong Bay, you have to be on a cruise to experience the real beauty. So I'm sure you can do kayaking, you can do other stuff. What is it that one should expect in
So
Halong Bay?
let's start by talking about what the Halong Bay really is. It is
Hmm.
like about 1600-ish limestone like towers, which are like, which you
Yeah.
can call mountains. So there's super
Hmm.
thin mountains, there's all of the blue waters, and then you'll see hundreds of cruises going all through Halong Bay. Now, can you do a day trip? Yes, you can do a day trip. Can you do a like overnight trip? Yes, you can do an overnight trip also. I would say that depending on how you, like what you are as a traveler,
Hmm.
I would suggest doing an overnight trip will really help you get a lot of it, because there are two caves that are quite famous in Halong Bay. I can't remember the names right now, but those two things. But more so, kayaking in Halong Bay is super fun.
Yeah.
Getting that photo of you just in a kayak and all
Mhm.
of these tall mountains or tall limestone pillars next to you is incredible. Along with Halong Bay also has a neighbor, which is known as the Baitulong Bay. Now, Halong Bay is very touristy and incredible. There's nothing like it. And many people often say that a trip to Vietnam is not complete without a visit to Halong Bay. So, but most people tend to go to this Baitulong Bay also, where you are greeted by great beaches and everything. But what can you, like, to answer your question, what can you expect on a cruise? Well, of course, these cruises are not the luxury cruises that you see all across the
Yeah.
world. It's not your Queen Elizabeth, it's not your Royal
Mhm.
Caribbean, it's not your Star Cruises.
Mm.
It is more of just a cruise which will have about 8 to 10 rooms. But what you can really expect is just sitting on the deck of the cruise and just taking in the natural beauty that is Halong Bay. You get great food if you're a non-vegetarian, incredible seafood and fresh seafood because it's just caught and it's cooked, right? So I
Mm.
remember doing that. And if the captain allows you, you can also jump into the waters from the
Wow.
boat. And I really like that. Like, there's
Mm.
level one of the boat, you jump off from there, then there's level two, you jump off from there. So that was pretty good. So, Halong Bay, Baitulong Bay will give you similar things. Halong Bay has all of these limestone pillars much close to each other. But so if you're
Mm.
like a photography buff, you'll really like it. Baitulong Bay is similar, but it has like most of these limestone pillars a little spread out. So you may not get that photo that you're expecting.
Mm.
So yeah, that is Halong Bay. But
You know
before,
that those
yeah,
the photos of Halong Bay always remind me a little bit of Krabi, and
yeah,
when
yeah.
you're in Krabi and you go out because it's in the same area and it's kind of the same thing. So I'm sure it really sounds amazing. And like you said, yes, I would say if you don't have time, then do it. Go in for a day trip. But if you have time, then do go in for like at least one overnight, because waking up in a certain city, I think really, really, or a certain place and a destination brings out the best in it. And kayaking when everything is quiet and the tourists have left is often one of the best things to do, like you mentioned. Neil, we are speaking, we've spoken of Ho Chi Minh in the south, Hanoi in the north, and Halong Bay. Like you mentioned, Vietnam is a really, really long country. So there are a lot of, it has a big coastline. And I think it brings me to the next part, which is that there are some really interesting and nice towns and cities along the coast as well. So there's Hue, there's Hanoi, and Hoi An. Sorry, we spoke of Hanoi. There's Hoi An, and there is Danang. So did you have a chance to visit any of these, and what would you say? Because I think Hoi An is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's really a pretty place to visit. So let's talk of these places now.
I think Hoi An was my favorite place in
Okay.
Vietnam. So Hoi An doesn't have an airport. So we flew from Ho Chi Minh. So what we did was we went from Ho Chi Minh, took a bus to a place called Mune, which was like a sort of beach
Bus.
town. Yeah, like a bus. And that was like, I found Wi-Fi on a Southeast Asia, like in a
Wow.
Southeast Asian country on a bus for the first time. So Ho Chi Minh to Mune. From Mune, we went to Nha Trang. Nha Trang can be compared to a Phuket or something like that, where you have just nice beaches. And from Nha Trang, we went to Danang. And from Danang, we went to Hoi An. We'll come to Danang. But Hoi An is a place where you just see lanterns. In the evening, walking through Hoi An doesn't have cars allowed in the main quarter. So you have to like cycle around. So they have like lanterns lit all through the town, and it is one of the prettiest sights you'll see in all of Vietnam. They also have the Lantern Festival, which happens during the Vietnamese New Year, which is generally in the first week of February. So it's a 10-day festival. That time the lanterns, so through the quarter, there's a small river that passes through. So the lanterns are actually floating in the water, and you can also go onto a boat and sail through the waters while you're doing that. So Hoi An was super pretty. There is also the Japanese covered bridge that was built a long time ago that is famous over there. But just that lantern town is something that, just left me like awestruck. Like, I don't know what to say. I still, like, anyone ask me, what is that one place I should definitely go in Vietnam? I would say Hoi An, because it is super pretty. And you know what it is also famous for? It is famous for making like
I
clothes.
remember you telling me about it, and I remember you coming back with a suitcase that was packed and full, and I think you got an entire new wardrobe,
Yeah, so
if
it
I'm
was
not
not a
wrong, right?
suitcase. Imagine me backpacking with my backpack
Oh
and
yeah, you
carrying
were
3
in a
suits
backpack.
around
Yeah.
everywhere, all across Vietnam. But
Wow.
that was the thing, like, how those, so it's a bespoke suit, like tailored just for you, right? So
Okay.
they have material lying down and
And all budgets.
all budgets. I mean, the most
Okay.
expensive suit was $100.
Wow.
So yeah, like
Okay.
$100, most expensive suit they had over there. But the more important thing is turnaround time. They gave it to me in one day. Like,
Fantastic.
they called me for 3 fittings. They were like, if you can cycle down, come, we'll look at this. So I got 3 suits. But more importantly, for men or women, they have magazines kept in all of these tailor shops over there. And they
Okay.
say, point to anything that you want over here, we will give it to you in one day, according to how you want it to be. Like, super, like, it fits right. So those suits were incredible. And of course, over the years, I've put on a little bit of weight, so those suits don't fit. So a trip to Hoi An is definitely worth it. But I tell many of my friends that if you're spending a lot of money on like crazy $1,000 suits and all in India, don't do that. Like, just go to Hoi An. The ticket plus the suit will be cheaper than what you would spend on like suits here or anywhere in the world. So that
Yeah,
that
so
was
it's
that was
like
something.
a free holiday along with your suit. So you can
Exactly.
actually make it happen. I mean, if you plan
Yeah.
for it, you can definitely make it happen. And Neil, I just want to add to that another thing that I always tell people to do when they're going there, especially women, is also get an ao dai stitch to their measurements. So the ao dai is the traditional Vietnamese dress, and it's so similar to an Indian dress, but it's like a silk tunic and loose palazzo pants. That is a very traditional dress of Vietnam, and it looks really stunning. It's quite pretty. It comes in different beautiful colors, and definitely that's something that you can think of buying. And like you're saying, you can get everything customized to your
Yeah.
measurements. So definitely the fit will be great. So yeah, you're giving us more than one reason to go to Hoi An, the pretty lantern town. And like you mentioned, February is, I mean, you can always visit then, or you can
Yeah, you
visit
can visit
now.
any
And
time in the year, I
yeah,
would say. Yeah.
because the lantern's always there,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So yeah, that is Hoi An, and then there is Danang, and Danang recently is really becoming very popular because of the golden hands, and it also has some really luxurious hotels out there. So all of this, I think, would be possible from Ho Chi Minh, right? So you would have to
Yeah,
come
you
in,
can
or you
fly
can
into
actually
Ho
fly
Chi
to
Minh or
Danang as
Hanoi,
well.
and then you
Hmm.
fly into Danang. But yeah,
Hmm.
like you fly into Danang and the Golden Hands Bridge, which is situated in the famous Bana Hills.
Hmm.
So Bana Hills are like this picturesque sort of hilly area, and
Hmm.
this bridge that we talk about, that is the Golden Hands Bridge, is about a 150-meter long bridge. And like you said, it's become so popular
Yeah.
that now getting a photo over there is difficult. So it's like the Great Wall of China, how the Great Wall of China has different sections, right? But Badaling is the most
Hmm.
popular because it's the closest to Beijing. Everyone's over there. So something similar happens over here. And but those hands that are holding up the bridge, and it's as if only the hands are holding it,
Hmm.
they've been made in such a way that the finishing is not like super smooth or silky and all of
Hmm.
that. It is showing that like
It's
they want to
weathered
show
the
that,
hands. Yeah.
yeah, like weathered hands, so that these hands have been holding this bridge for the
Hmm.
longest time and decades and centuries and all of that. So that is Danang's most famous site. And I think Instagram also put out that bridge is one of the most Instagrammable places in Vietnam, or most Instagrammed places in Vietnam, something like this. So Danang has that. Danang also has a unique, like, normal flyover car bridge, but it's called the
Hmm.
Dragon Bridge. And the Dragon
Okay.
Bridge at night, it lights up in such a way where the lights start in the tail of the dragon, comes
Hmm.
slowly towards the mouth, and the moment the light hits the mouth, the dragon just gives a flare out, and that you can see while you're in Danang. So that's Danang. And you mentioned Hue also. So Hue was the or Hue, whatever
Hmm.
you want to call it. It was actually the place where, like, which is bang in the middle of North and South Vietnam. So that was like the part that separated North and South. And this is a place where you can really cycle around the town. And you know, it is over here. There is also the what they call the Vietnam Colosseum, right? And they have a
Hmm.
tiger fighting museum over there. Back in the day, there was tigers, elephants, and all fighting as part of here. So that's basically what you'll find around the center of Vietnam. There are many other places, but yeah, that's that.
Yeah, so I was reading of this, the Golden Hats Bridge, and the principal designer, who was Wu Viet An. He said that, the feeling that he wanted to invoke in people was a sensation of walking along a thread and walking through the hands of God. So I think he's really achieved that, because, like you said, the hands are not super smooth. It looks like it has been taking the weight of this earth and the bridge for long, and we are actually walking through that. It does, from what we are saying and what you're talking about, Neil, it looks like you have to spend some time in Vietnam, and really, to be able to see the different cities. There's so many places to visit. And before we go any further, but I know something that's really interesting about Vietnam, and which is often interested a lot of people, and people do come back with packets of these as well when they're visiting, is the Vietnamese coffee. I know that there are some ready-made versions which you can just like a pre-mix, and you add water and you can have the Vietnamese coffee. But you this is again something that you have to taste when you're there. I've also heard that you
You
add
put on a
an
lot of
egg to
weight
the
for having
coffee.
that coffee. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, something, it's very sweet, right? So what is the Vietnamese coffee?
So I think Vietnamese coffee is like your milk made custard at the bottom,
Uh-huh.
and then black coffee. So it's like an Americano with your custard. And if you
Mhm.
stir it, it's like sugar bomb. But
Wow.
and you'll get that all across Vietnam, and you should
Yeah.
definitely try it. Some places also give you the egg like Vietnamese
Egg
egg
coffee.
coffee, which
Uh-huh.
is a unique taste in itself. I can't
Mm,
describe the taste, but it's
mm,
something that you should definitely do. So in Vietnam, right, there is also one city that is known as the coffee capital of Vietnam, which goes by the name of the Buon Ma Thuot. And over
okay.
here, there is the World Coffee Museum. You will find a lot of coffee related attractions over here. And the biggest company in Vietnam for coffee is a company known as the Trung Nguyen Coffee Company. You'll
Mm,
often find in Vietnam, most things start with NG. So like
mm,
NGUYEN is not like, it's hard to pronounce, right? But
yeah.
it's just Nguyen. The G is more often silent. So most of the places in this coffee capital, which of Buon Ma Thuot, is
Mhm.
like are related to just coffee. But given the geography of Vietnam, you may probably not make it to this coffee capital of Vietnam, but whether you're in Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh, any part, you can definitely get this coffee. And I think we were having 2 or 3 of these every day. And
Mhm.
one of the good things that you can also do is that there are many restaurants, which, of course, when they're not serving lunch and dinner, you can just sit and sip on the coffee, just looking at the river. It's a very calming thing.
Mm.
And of course, for tourists, we are looking for Wi-Fi everywhere, right? At any point, we want to post
Yes.
photos. So something similar is is what tourists do over here, where they are sipping the coffee and they are on Instagram all throughout. So yeah,
It
that's
reminds
the
me
thing.
of, the tea in Malaysia. So in Malaysia, you have tea called teh tarik, and that
Mhm.
is very similar to Indian tea, but it is basically tea with milk made in it, and they are they're frothing it with hand, and it's really quite tasty. So it sounds quite similar when you think of the condensed milk in it, and there's tea there, and there's coffee here, and definitely worth trying. And I think, Neil, one of the best things to do when you're on holiday is to forget all about other things and just enjoy the place and not worry about how many calories are there in the coffee. But you are in Vietnam, so you have to have the Vietnamese coffee. You cannot
Yeah.
leave the country without doing that, right? But which brings me to a little bit more about food. You mentioned about pho, and you mentioned about chicken and meat, and nowadays, yes, you do get a lot of vegetarian. But Vietnam is also known for its sandwiches, right? Banh mi,
The
that is
banh
also
mi
something.
sandwich.
So how do you order
Incredible.
that? Like,
Yeah.
is it made? Is it ready made? Do
There are
they make it
many
in front? Is there something to keep in mind for when you're traveling? How do you taste a
there are
banh mi?
many carts on the road, and there are restaurants that will serve you banh mi. But again, here the French influence comes in, right? It's a
Mhm,
baguette. Like, think of like a Subway 12-inch foot
mhm.
long, which is a 6-inch, similar to that, and they have different fillings. What makes it unique is that they have the sweet and sour sauce in there. They have a slight chili sauce, and then you can get a vegetarian banh mi, a chicken banh mi, a pork banh mi, a beef banh mi, and sometimes a seafood banh mi also, which will probably have prawns or fish. But yeah, banh mi is something. So when we were in Vietnam, we were having pho, we were having banh mi sandwiches, we were having the Vietnamese rolls. They also have a crunchy Vietnamese spring roll that often people have.
Mm.
Vietnamese noodles are slightly different to our normal noodles, and the Vietnamese fried rice seemed more or
Even the
less the same.
fresh paper rolls, right? Even the fresh
Yeah.
rice paper rolls that they do, that is also quite amazing. So there is so much of food to be done here. And I think a lot of it comes from, they use a lot of fresh ingredients. So I guess it's none of the food is really stale, or it's
Oh,
all made
it's all
freshly, right?
fresh. Yeah, yeah,
Everything is fresh. So I guess that goes to why it tastes so good when you're doing that. Neil, you went backpacking. So was there anything else did you do? Or were there any adventure activities or other things that you added to your tour? So let's just tell us a little bit about that.
So when it comes to adventure, Vietnam has beaches, right? So you can do all of the things that come along with the beaches. It has a lot of waterfalls, so you can jump into a waterfall. You can do a lot of trekking. So one thing I wanted to talk about was Cadba Island. So
Mhm.
I did a mistake of flying from Danang, not into Hanoi, but to something called Haiphong. And from Haiphong, we went to Cadba Island, which has Lanha Bay, which is similar to a Halong Bay, and it is often known as an alternative to Halong Bay. And we stayed on Cadba Island. So Cadba Island offers a lot of trekking opportunities. You can go check out this lookout tower trail that is it is known as. It is also home to a trail which is known as the Kang Viet High Trail, which is an 18-kilometer trail that, of course, you need good fitness levels, but offers you great views.
Mm.
Also, there is the Phong Nha National Park, which has the world's largest cave, which is known as the Hang Son Doong Cave. And it is often said that the cavern that is part of this cave is so tall that a skyscraper would fit inside the cave. So when you are in this place, which is Phong Nha National Park, you can also do a lot of adventure activities which involve descending into caves, into deep
Oh,
caves. You see a lot of the caves that are just untouched, and it's quite beautiful. So when it comes to that, like, when we were backpacking, we rented scooters and we were roaming around
mm.
everywhere in scooters. So Vietnam is a place where you'll see a lot of scooters. Everyone's on a scooter, and everyone. So you should definitely know how to ride a scooter, but more importantly, you should be aware of what's happening around you, because you might be going on a 12-kilometer long ride because the waterfall is 12 kilometers away. But if you fall, there might not be a car in sight for the next 5 or 10 minutes. So, like, you should probably keep that in mind.
Wow, this is really nice. I mean, we're talking of adventure and there's things to do in Vietnam. Food, there's so much to taste in Vietnam. Shopping, there is so much. And with culture and, all of that, the history also, there is so much to do in Vietnam. Neil, I think, we are coming closer to the end of this episode, but if you think we've missed something, do add that. But one question I want to ask you is, with so many things to do there, if someone was planning a trip that would cover all of these places, how long do you think they should spend, and how would you connect the cities? I guess given the distance, you would have to fly between most of the cities, right? So what do you think, if you're taking that one epic trip to Vietnam, how long do you spend there and how do you travel?
So the trip that I did was 15 days, but that
Oh.
also ensured that I got to see a lot that you can. But of course, everyone today,
Mm,
like even today, I can't do a 15-day trip. So I would say 7 or 8 days is a good time to spend in Vietnam.
mm,
If you are pressed for time, the three main cities that you would do are Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh, and flying into Da Nang and then going to Hoi An. So Da
mm,
Nang and Hoi An can be done together. Ho Chi Minh, you can spend probably 2 nights. You can spend similar amount of nights in Hoi An, in Da Nang, and in Hanoi you can spend 1 or 2 nights. But keep in mind that you also want to do a night in Halong Bay. So I would say not to miss these, but if you have the time, you could probably spend 25 days in Vietnam also, and they have
mm.
a good public transport system and all of that. And I think our tours also, that like the tour that we have at Veena World, is a 7 or 8 day tour where
Yeah.
we are doing this. And of course, you go to the Golden Hands Bridge also. So that's one great highlight of that tour.
And I've heard that there is a plan to even start a direct flight to Phuoc. Phuoc is the island of Vietnam, which is closer to Cambodia, and
Yeah.
they are probably planning a direct flight out there. So that'll be really amazing. We'll have more than one reason and more than one destination in Vietnam that we can go to. But for now, the direct flights are on, and we can really make our way out there. Neil, is there anything else you want to add to today's episode?
I would only give one tip, and that is direct flights are on Vietjet, right? So
Mhm.
Vietjet has three types of seats. One is known as Skyboss, which is their premium economy seat, which of course you have to pay more for.
Mm.
Then they have premium seats, which are rows 4 and 5 on that aircraft. And then they have the regular seats and the emergency exit seats. If you're flying to Vietnam, instead of spending on a premium seat, which Vietjet, of course, claims that gives you more legroom, I don't think it does give you more legroom. Try to go for the emergency exit seat, because emergency exit generally is 2 rows, right? But on some of their aircraft, the 2 rows are such that the front row has only 2 seats and the back row has 3 seats. So if you take the back row, if you take the window side seat,
Mm.
there is no one in front of you. And that is one tip that I would want to leave you with, because I'm flying to Bali next month and we decided to take Vietjet, and I just booked those seats. And I watched a lot of reviews of Vietjet and all of that. So that is one tip that I'd like to leave with our listeners and viewers.
And that is a great tip for tall people, because very often you have the problem when, with less legroom. So that is definitely a tip that will save you money as well and ensure that you have a great holiday. Thank you, Neil. It's been amazing. And I think you've inspired everyone. I'm also inspired to go to Vietnam. I've been planning it for so long. Now that the direct flight is here, I'm sure I'll get there. And I really have a list of things to do, list of things to see, list of things to taste and visit and stay at. So I definitely look forward to this Vietnam holiday. And to all our viewers and listeners, thank you for listening to Travel Explore Celebrate Live. This was Neil and Sunila. We are signing off now, and we'll be back next week again with yet another episode and another exciting destination. Till then, take care. Bye.
Bye, everyone. See you.